All right, boys and girls, let's do this.
Like herding cats.
It is, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
I never know when you're going to do it, and it scares me to death.
Yeah, well, here, I'll let you do it.
No.
You get to do it next. You get to do this next.
I know.
We're ready to do this. Welcome to this meeting of the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, December 7th, 2022. The meeting notice was posted according to the requirements of the Open Meeting Act. This meeting will come to order. Can we call the roll, please?
Good morning. Yes. First Congressional District Commissioner Kevin Potter.
Here.
Second Congressional District Commissioner David Conway.
Here.
Third Congressional District Commissioner Charles Ortega.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner Lindy Ritz.
Here.
Fifth Congressional District Commissioner Blake Rainey.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Chairman Jerry Hunter.
Present.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. The next order of business is the approval of minutes. The draft of the minutes of the October 12th, 2022 meeting has been sent to you. Copies in your meeting packet. Are there any questions or corrections to the meeting minutes as distributed? If there are no corrections, I will accept motions to approve the minutes as distributed. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Chairman Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion passes. The next order of business is item 4, recognition of Aeronautics Commission staff by the Air and Space Forces Association. Ms. Janelle Stafford, Mr. Jeff James, Director Arties, and Ms. Sandra Shelton. You are all recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I feel like I shouldn't be presenting this item, but I believe we have a couple of folks from the Air Force Association this morning that have some recognition. Oh, right over here. All right. Why don't you guys come on up?
Short girl, sorry. Well, good morning, and thank you so much for sharing a few moments of your agenda with us today so that we can say thank you. As you may know, the Air and Space Forces Association, Garrity chapter, enjoys a wonderful partnership and relationship with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. For those of you who may not know a lot about us, we are one of about 200 AFA chapters nationally, and we exist to advocate, educate, and support on behalf of our Air Force generally and our Oklahoma Air Force bases locally, including Tinker. We do this in a number of ways and includes STEM, it includes STEM education programs like Cyber Patriot, Stellar Explorer, and advocacy efforts, and this is where we interface the most with OAC. The Garrity chapter is one of the largest chapters in the nation and certainly one of the most active. In July, we hosted a regional conference in Oklahoma City for 16 chapters in Oklahoma and Texas. Among our speakers and guests was our National Board Chairman, Gerald Murray, and our National President, Bruce Wright. It was a wonderful weekend to exchange information and ideas, to take in some professional development and briefings from our national speakers. The Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission was one of our sponsors for this event, which we appreciate absolutely more than you could possibly know, particularly in light of the fact that the OAC staff that same weekend was supporting Oshkosh. Despite this fact, you helped us facilitate our conference with your great support. We are so grateful to Director Arties and to members of the OAC staff who support us not just at that moment, but on a regular basis. Director Arties, thank you so much for your continuing support and assistance, which helps us support the airmen, guardians, DoD civilians, Guard, Reserve, and our veteran community. As the largest single-site employer in our state, Tinker's vital to our Oklahoma economy. But as many here know, we play a much larger national role maintaining the assets that keep our warfighter flying and literally supporting our national security. So Director Arties, thank you.
Just hold and look.
I guess you hold it again back here. Let's see one more. That'd be a good thing. You want to slide over and get it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I won't reiterate everything that was just said, but ditto to what Janelle covered. With that being said, Sandra Shelton didn't know much about the United States Air Force, and she signed up to be a member, and then she became our community partner representative, helping us do better with more outreach across the state. So with that being said, it was a unanimous decision to nominate her for Member of the Year at our chapter. We hadn't had a chance to present it to her. She's been so busy, but we wanted to say congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, John.
Comments or questions from our commissioners? If not, next is item 5, Fly Oklahoma mobile app recognition and update. Mr. Wadsworth, you are recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I want to take just a few minutes to give you guys an update on the mobile app that we launched earlier this year, and then also have a special recognition for a couple that we have joining us this morning. I want to start out by saying thanks to HPE, our vendor who developed the app, and Thomas Galloway from our staff that spent a lot of time on this over the past few months, developing it and implementing it and continuing on with it. So as you might remember, we launched this app publicly at Oshkosh, end of July. Basically, August 1st is when we began promoting it to the public. Since that time, the app's been downloaded about 710 times across Google and Apple. We have 367 user accounts that have been created on the app. That does include users from 7 different states. In addition to Oklahoma, we have users from Texas, Arkansas, Kansas, Iowa, North Carolina, and Minnesota. On the Passport program, which you might remember, that rewards pilots for visiting airports across the state. We have 3 different levels. Once you reach a level, we will send them a prize. We have 165 current active participants on the Passport program. We've had over 1,600 check-ins at airports across the state using the mobile app. We have had 4 individuals reach the gold level, 2 at the silver level, and 5 at the bronze level. And I think the most gratifying for me has been the feedback I've received, the calls, the emails from maybe it's a father that's doing it with his son, or vice versa, or flying clubs that are kind of having competitions amongst themselves across the states. We've heard feedback from people who fly into an airport, use their courtesy car, go eat at a local restaurant, and that's just been repeated the past few months. So the feedback we've received has been really positive. It's been exactly what we were hoping to achieve when we had this idea and brought it to fruition. A little bit about what we're looking forward to next year. We are looking at adding some new challenges that we're working on now that would hopefully kick off kind of with the spring flying season. Those may be something as generic as, flying to the 5 longest runways in the state, to something that's time-based. Maybe it's over a weekend, it's a Red River run or something where you got to hit X amount of airports along the Red River. Again, just all with the purpose of continuing to drive people to the airports and continue supporting the local airports across the state. So having said that, we do have Greg and Nancy Lucas with us this morning. They are from Elmore City. They were the first to reach the gold level on the app. They checked into their first airport on August 5th, and by September 30th, they had visited every airport in the state. That's on the app, all 110 airports. Along the way, they kind of became our de facto testers, given that they were the first ones to land at a lot of these airports. So they were really helpful to us, providing feedback along the way and bugs that we needed to work out. So at this time, I'd ask them to come forward, and Director Artis, and we're going to present them with their Fly Oklahoma Challenge coins and their leather jackets that they receive as part of being at the gold level.
We'll do it the official way.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, they have
Oh,
to
yeah,
take that
there
off.
you go.
Oh,
Jacket
jacket.
on. Yep. So this will be yours. Yours. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind coming down for a photo opportunity. Come up here and take a picture. I guess, can we move this out of the way easily? Wired.
Oh, that's not gonna give us that.
Shake.
Shake.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if you would, if Greg and Nancy would like to say a word about their kind of experience, I'd like to give them the chance, if you're okay.
We'd like to thank everybody that put all their time into this because it was a great program. We enjoyed it. You know, we flew over the mountains, the plains, the desert. We got to see everything. I've flown a lot, started in 96, got nearly 2,000 hours, flown in every state, but we had more fun doing this than I think any flying experience we've had. So just want to thank everybody for all they did. Cessna 180.
Oh, cool.
We did, Nancy did 3 landings in a 182 that she's learning to fly in, and it was just so hot that day we couldn't take anymore. But after that, we pretty much did all in my 180. It was a lot of fun, though.
And I want to thank you also. We have lots of places on our list we've been sharing with people. You got to go here, you got to go here. We have many plans next spring and summer to go back and stay a few places and eat more. We're kind of, his challenge for next spring, we will be on that because we are more about, okay, this wasn't a competition, but we took it that way. So we have a lot of places we need to go back and eat or drive to and see. And we love the places with the courtesy cars that hand them out, and we just get to go and see the area. So we will be doing that, which I know is part of the objective. But thank you very much.
Favorite airport?
Probably, what
I
was
don't
the
know.
name of the one?
I loved Eufaula. I pop into those
Yeah.
3 and like
Yeah,
Eufaula. We will be
that was a
going back
pretty area.
there.
What's the one, isn't that one that you fall that we were talking about? That was
Yeah,
the
and
little
I-
town's kind of based on a coastal town somewhere, and
Carlton Landing.
that was it.
Yeah,
That was
we're gonna
probably,
go
that
stay
was
there.
probably our favorite.
Yeah, I've had several people say, "Oh yeah, that's a great place to spend the
And
weekend."
we would stop, and, you know, if it was time, we'd go get somewhere to eat, get the car. And somebody said, man, how much did you spend on fuel on that? And I think probably about $2,300 through the course of about 6 weeks is about what it took us to do it. But that's what it's all about, you know, get people out, see the airports, have fun. I work at the Sulphur Airport. We welcome people to come down there, and there's a lot of stuff to do. And a lot of people don't know that you can just go land somewhere and there's a car, even though they're already a pilot, you know, and just about every airport's got a courtesy car, which is nice. But it was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. So thank all of you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Lucas. Thank you very much for flying Oklahoma. Are there any comments or questions from our commissioners? If not, our next order of business is item 6, election of officers for calendar year 2023. We will accept nominations for chair, vice chair, and secretary.
I'd like to nominate and move that Commissioner Lindy Ritz serve as chairwoman, and Commissioner Charles Ortega serve as our vice chair, and Commissioner Blake Rainey serve as secretary for the calendar year for 2023.
I'd like to second that.
I always second the motion.
We have a motion, is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Chairman Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes. The next order of business is item 7, our director's report. Director Arties, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the director's report, yes, we are a little light. There is a hole in the agenda there. I happen to have a child on October 25th that precluded me from going to some events in November. But it's all good. It's a beautiful baby girl, and we're just trying to help out that future women in aviation aerospace. So we're gonna get her in an airplane as soon as we can. But before that happened, I did have an opportunity to go to a few events post our October commission meeting. The Oklahoma Defense Industry Association had their defense briefing with Governor Stitt at the Skirvin Hotel. Of course, the governor spoke about his initiative trying to be a top 10 state and how aviation fits into that role, and how this is so important to our state's economy being the second largest industry, and of course our fastest growing, to help us diversify the economy overall. And some of the things he's looking forward to, both on the defense side as well as the aerospace side, and the growth of Tinker Air Force Base, and what he wants to see Oklahoma look like for the next 4 years, because this was pre-election. Follow that up with the Oklahoma Airport Operators meeting on October 19th, held at the Destinations Aviation Center in Tulsa. I was joining virtually, but we had several staff in attendance up there. Thomas was able to give an update on the OMA Camp military airspace project. And of course, I was able to discuss the recently passed PREP program and what that was going to mean for airports and the investment of the dollars the legislature has provided for aviation aerospace across the state. On October 20th, the OADI Symposium held their first annual symposium. OADI is the University of Oklahoma's Oklahoma Aerospace and Defense Innovation Institute. As you all probably have seen in the news, both OU and OSU have stood up institutes to support aviation aerospace, OSU's being OAir, OU's as being OADI. Also had Governor Stitt at that, along with President Harris, and a litany of individuals from various backgrounds: Congressman Cole, Congresswoman Bice, Major General Sean Gainey, General Hawk Carl, Dr. Mark Lewis, and of course many others that discussed some of the challenges, some of the research opportunities, and some of the future visioning for what the Defense Institute has to offer for OU and how OU can play in that role. Heard anything from aviation, traditional aviation, to unmanned and advanced air mobility, to radar research and environmental sustainability and everything in between. Really, I think OU and OSU have well positioned themselves to support these great industries. And of course, OU is doing some great things with the OADI concept and how that's one of their main pillars for what OU wants to support for the next decades to come. December 2nd, here fairly recently, attended the State of the Aerospace Industry that the Oklahoma City Chamber put on. We had General Stacy Hawkins and Andre McMillan from Pratt & Whitney there, able to give a discussion about the state of the Air Force Sustainment Center and how the private sector prime contractors are working within the new NDAA potential moving forward. Had a great opportunity there to mingle and discuss with all the aviation aerospace entities here in the metro area about what the future looks like and where we're going to be going in the next several years. Of course, the expansion of Tinker Air Force Base and the B-21 Raider, which also B-21 Bomber Raider also happened that day. Pretty exciting stuff for the United States Air Force. December 5th, this past Monday, had the opportunity to attend the Select Oklahoma Legislative Training Session. Select Oklahoma is a group of economic development organizations across the state. Obviously, their primary mission is to grow the business community within their individual community, and the organization as a whole is an opportunity for all those EDO officials to get together to discuss what does that industry need to move the state of Oklahoma forward. I had the opportunity to talk about, obviously, one of our biggest incentives that the Aeronautics Commission played a role in. That was the engineer tax credits for aerospace and how that has played a role in recruiting and expanding aviation aerospace throughout the state, and what the legislature has been able to do in the past to both implement that originally, make some tweaks to it to ensure it ran smoothly, and then what we're looking to into the future for those legislators. This was particularly focused around the freshman legislators, and as Sandra will tell you, it's very important to get those freshman legislators educated and up to speed, because they are drinking from a fire hose as they come into that Capitol building after the election cycle, and they're having things thrown at them from all different directions. So it was good for the Aeronautics Commission to be able to be there and share the information that we have about aviation aerospace and how they can affect change for that. Made several good friends over the last couple of days, which usually doesn't happen in December. Usually it's just kind of everybody's going everywhere. But we had some good meetings, made some good friends, and saw a lot of important people at the Capitol the last couple of days.
Director, I just might add that not every agency, there's nearly 100 agencies. Not every agency has the opportunity to conduct freshman orientation. So it was a big deal for the Aeronautics Commission to get to do that. So we were very glad to do that.
And of course, yesterday we had the State Chamber Public Affairs Forum, which was a big organization of all the elected officials discussing what the upcoming 2023 legislative session looks like. President Pro Tem Greg Treat, Democratic Leader Kay Floyd, Speaker Charles McCall, and Minority Leader Cindy Munson all spoke about what their priorities are going to be for the 2023 legislative session. And of course, the number one topic of the hour was workforce and the challenges that businesses are experiencing in the state of Oklahoma with workforce. Focused a little bit on Prairie Surf Studios and the great things that they're doing in the movie making industry. Of course, we all know, well, maybe not, Tulsa King and how great that's been for the state of Oklahoma. I have not watched the show, but I've heard good things about it. It's on my to-do list. Also, aviation aerospace is experiencing workforce challenges. We know as the Aeronautics Commission that we are trying to lead the state forward with aviation aerospace in our workforce and our educational programs, with Paula Keaty's doing yeoman's work going across the great state of Oklahoma. And so they're able to highlight one of those activities in the Norman School District and what they're doing with the Oklahoma Aviation Academy and trying to do a full immersion high school program there in Norman, Oklahoma. And then lastly, technology. We had Dell, Chief Technology Officer, in to discuss how they would like to propose some of these Silicon Valley on the prairie concepts to try and bring more technology startups and technology companies to the state of Oklahoma. But it was all surrounding innovation, all surrounding workforce development, and how do we get today's kids that haven't even been born, to be able to stay here in Oklahoma and have good long careers, raise families, and enjoy the life that we have here in Oklahoma. So great opportunity, and that, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, concludes my director's report.
Thank you very much, Grayson. Are there any comments or questions from our commissioners? If not, next on the agenda is item 8, our financial report. Mr. Wadsworth.
Good morning again. Starting out with the financial summary document, as of the end of November, the commission had an ending cash balance of $10.5 million and encumbrances totaling about $8.2 million. Outstanding reimbursements owed to the agency total about $992,000. The amount of remaining expenditures in the airport construction program that could be incurred this fiscal year totals $5.3 million, assuming those grants are approved by the commission. Leaves us with an expected available cash balance after encumbrances and an expected income of $3.4 million. And our total fiscal year-to-date expenditures are $3.1 million as of the end of November. Moving on to the revenue document, total statutory revenue collected for the month of October was just over $1 million. And you'll see there revenue collected for November is shown as just over $2 million. That is not complete. Tax Commission has not posted the final amounts yet for the fuel tax or license plates. Those will come in tomorrow. So that number will increase even more. I will note the November collection is our largest single month collection dating back to at least 2011 and likely probably in the history of the agency. So certainly a very good month for revenue collections. Total statutory revenue collected through November this fiscal year is just under $4.4 million, which compares to $2.4 million from the same time frame last year. So we're up about 80% year over year on revenue collections. Finally, on the 3-year average revenue document, you see the revenue collected from aircraft registration fees, excise tax, fuel tax, and license plates is currently about $2.3 million more than what our average is. So again, the November collections really increased that average. So feel like a broken record on that slide every month, but it's a good record. We'll take it. That revenue continues to outpace year over year and 3-year average, and we're certainly thankful for that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Any insight as to why the revenues are so high?
What's
Changed?
Yeah, it's the excise tax collection is the big one. Excise tax collection was $1.7 million this month, and surprisingly, typically when we have a high month of tax collections, it's attributed to one aircraft. This month, there really wasn't a single aircraft. It was a purchase of numerous kind of moderate aircraft that just compiled to it. So that goes back to excise tax. So It's looking to be a good year to have the cap removed. So
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any other questions? If not, moving on to item 9, our legislative, congressional, and regulatory update. Director Artis.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief here on the legislative, congressional, regulatory update. Of course, you heard me talk a little earlier about briefing freshman lawmakers at the Select Oklahoma event. We will continue doing that. Sandra and I will try and hit every single freshman lawmaker to educate them on the agency, educate them on aviation aerospace, and ensure that we can carry the message forward. I will say that pretty much everybody we've met with so far has been excited and energized about aviation aerospace. Even if they don't have an airport in their district, they understand what this industry means to the state of Oklahoma, and the fact that they're coming in to the Capitol with that, where I think even I and even my predecessor would tell you that just 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was a 1 or 2 year process to get these folks educated about what aviation aerospace meant to the state. And so I think it goes to show you that our message is working, our awareness of what this industry means to Oklahoma is working, and so just good things moving forward. On the congressional front, of course, we are waiting in lame duck Congress session as to whether or not we're going to get a full year appropriations or we're going to get another continuing resolution to kick us into the next Congress. There are 2 major congressionally designated spending requests that are in this appropriations package that we are watching. Of course, there's multiple going to airports across the state, but the two we're watching are for the Tulsa Tower and the tower at Max Westheimer Airport. Those are two of Inhoff's last requests before he leaves office, so we're very interested to see those get passed. And I'm hopeful that that will happen here sometime during the lame duck session so that we can start moving forward with planning for those dollars and investing those into those particular two tower projects. Also, Congressman Lucas released the National Drone and Advanced Air Mobility Initiative Act of 2022. This was a coordinated effort and a long-time effort over the summer of trying to figure out ways to ensure that our country is able to be seen as the leader for all things drones and AAM. Obviously, we know the challenges of trying to integrate this technology into the national airspace, and that's why Oklahoma is trying to step forward to be a leader in that area and to help support this integration effort. But we also need some help from Congress and our federal government to ensure that we're able to do that. So various grant programs, competitive research programs would be available within this initiative act if it passes. Of course, this is just the bill drop. Of course, now the hard work begins of trying to get sponsors, move it over to the Senate. And obviously it becomes either a standalone bill or gets wrapped up into a package of bills. I suspect some of this may get carried over into the FAA reauthorization discussion, which is the other thing that is going on right now at the federal level right now, is trying to figure out where everybody's going to be positioned for 2023 as the current FAA reauthorization comes to a close. And obviously everybody's positioning themselves for the big debates and seeing whether or not we're actually going to be able to get a reauthorization package passed before the current reauthorization expires, which is also always our hope. If we can get another 5-year bill passed, great. I won't hold my breath because I may not make it. And I don't want to put my life and stake my life on that, but that is our hope and that is our goal, that they can pass a reauthorization package before the current one expires at the end of federal fiscal year 23. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that concludes my legislative, congressional, and regulatory update.
Thank you, Grayson. Do we have any comments or questions? If not, moving on to item 10, our Aerospace and Aviation Education Program update. Paula?
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. You've heard me mention several times that the AOPA, the Aircraft Owners Pilots Association, has a window of opportunity for schools to apply to use their free curriculum. It opened a few weeks ago on November 15th, and it will close on May 31st. So I never wait till November 15th. I start when school starts or actually in the summer and visit with school leaders, school superintendents. So when that window does open, they're ready to jump in and apply to get the curriculum. The screen that you see, screenshot that you see, was part of the opening session in Memphis a few weeks ago at the AOPA High School STEM Symposium. That flashed up on the screen, and even I was amazed, and I was the one that drove around to all those spots that are up there on that map. Very gratifying. It was kind of everyone just turned and looked, and we've had a lot of positive response. I spoke with the people at AOPA, and they're just so pleased with the work that we're doing in regard to workforce, because that is exactly what's happening in these high schools. So very excited about that. Secondly, I spoke at the meeting of the Governor's Committee on Workforce Development, and I talked to the group on October 28th about what we're doing with aviation education in regard to AOPA, as well as in regard to Choose Aerospace maintenance curriculum that some schools are starting. I also served as the moderator of a panel at Oklahoma Aerospace Forum at the Omni on November the 1st, where we discussed, again, education and workforce needs. Had a full room of people very interested in what's happening in our schools, both at the collegiate level, at the high school level, and even all the way down. How do you build aviation programs, beginning with our youngest and moving them up a pathway? On November 10th, I spoke at the monthly Chamber of Commerce Summit in Seminole. Senator Zach Taylor asked me to come to speak to them about aviation education. Of course, we are so pleased with Senator Taylor's work. He's the one that actually helped us push the core credit for the curriculum through this year. And as you know now, school students, as they graduate or as they enter the aviation program, will be getting graduation credit or core credit rather than elective credit for the work. And Senator Taylor was very gracious in helping us push that forward. On November 13 and 15 through 15, as I mentioned, we were in Memphis for the high school STEM symposium. You've heard me say numerous times that I've served on the National Steering Committee for AOPA high school curriculum. We had a lovely dinner. You see the president of AOPA, Mark Baker, there on the front row. And we were recognized. This group of steering committee folks has been together since 2017. He gave us each of us a beautiful presidential citation from AOPA for the work that we've done in spreading that. So that was lovely. We had, of the 450 people that were at the conference in Memphis, Oklahoma had 74 of the attendees there. School superintendents, teachers, STEM directors. And it was gratifying me to stand back and watch as our teachers there were asked numerous questions. You know, how's it working? How are you building your programs? And a chance to collaborate. Scott Bevan from Okmulgee High School served on 2 panels and presented at the conference. That's Chris Eckler from Ada High School, who served several times in the last few years at the conference on building aviation education. So it was a great, great conference. Next year's conference will be in Orlando. Also, you'll see in your agenda a list of schools that I visited since we last met. Sallisaw Public Schools, what's interesting to me is the Sallisaw Chamber and Economic Development Committee, they're the ones that called, and they said, Paula, we'll get the school people in the room if you'll come. So I went to Sallisaw. The next day, I went to Miami, visited Newcastle, Oklahoma Christian Academy, Moore Public Schools, Chief Standing Bearer of the Osage Nation I had met at the Omni a few weeks prior, and he said, can you come to Hominy? So I went to Hominy and I met with the education folks at the Osage Nation. I'm going back there in January because they want nearly all the schools of the Osage Nation to come hear the message. That's Superintendent Robert Romines of the Moore Public Schools. Moore Public Schools is moving forward next year, which would be Southmore, Westmore, and Moore High School in offering AOPA. Mr. Romines, or Dr. Romines, and his team came to Ada and had a big day talking to the superintendent there in Ada and how to build programming and move forward. And then finally, I want to just talk briefly about our next FAA 625 Workforce Grant event, which will be at OSU on February 24th and 25th, and it will be a UAS drone workshop for all the AOPA teachers. And again, because of the grant funding from FAA, we will be able to pay their lodging. We've built a program for them to get to go out to the unmanned airfield and do a lot of really neat things with their teachers. It's critical, and I believe very strongly, that one of the best parts of this FAA grant has been our ability to train our teachers and to help them move forward with their programming. Be happy to stand for any questions or comments.
Paula, on the schools that you just talked to, how soon would they be able to enter the program and start teaching?
In the fall.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll apply to AOPA, and AOPA moves very quickly and says, you know, you're granted permission. Now, they'll have to go to the summer training, and I will mention it looks like we're going to get to host that training at OU again in June. So that'll be really, really good. Any other?
Thank you, Paula. Do we have any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is item 11, our Airport Construction Grant Program consent docket. As usual, I want to remind everyone that any commissioner may request that any or all these items be considered individually. Mr. Ben Nagavi, we are ready, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner. Item A, there is an amendment for Kingfisher project due to an administrative error. The amendment will allow to move foundation from construction administration to field survey to offset costs. That amendment will not increase the commission's previously approved share. The project was to reconstruct the apron and taxi lane, and the total cost for this project is shy of $400,000. Item B, it's an amendment for Paul's Valley project. The amendment will allow for line item adjustment due to an administrative error. Funding will be moved from inspection to advertising and independent fee estimate to offset costs. The amendment will not increase the commission's previously approved share. The project was to construct a 100 by 100 feet hangar, and the total cost for this project is about $1.2 million. Item C, next project is the Chickasha Airport. The project consists of joint seal and spall repair of runway and taxiway, as well as pavement classification rating, PCR analysis. The estimated cost of the design phase and the PCR analysis for this project is over $87,000 and will be funded with over $82,000 of state grant funds and over $4,000 of a sponsor matching fund. Last item, item D. We have a crack seal and seal coat project at Perry and Hobart Airport that OAC staff enter into a contract for construction, and the OAC engineers have the opportunity to design and manage the project. Based on the bid, the total cost, combined project cost is shy of $670,000. At Hobart, the total cost is over $323,000. A state fund is over $307,000. A sponsor matching is over $16,000. At Perry, the total cost is shy of $346,000. A state fund is over $328,000, and a sponsor matching is over $17,000. I'm standing for any question you may have, but the staff recommends approval for items C and D.
Thank you. The first two items on this docket are information only, but we do need to take action on items C and D. Do we have a motion to approve items C and D as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Can we call the roll, please?
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Chairman Hunter.
Aye. The motion passes. The next order of business is item 12, our 2022 Airport Construction Program update. Mr. Kelly Fincannon, you and Ben may proceed.
Good morning and Merry Christmas. I really appreciate how Commissioner Putnam and I are in sync with our ties every commission meeting. Honestly, we do not call each other the night before and coordinate our wardrobes, but I like how we're in sync. So I want to talk about the airport construction program and update what has been constructed this year. The first project is at Ardmore Downtown Executive, which was a rehabilitation of the parallel taxiway and installed taxiway lights and signs. The total project cost was a little over $1.7 million. We've got a couple of pictures here to show you the project. The next project is the Ardmore Municipal Airport. And on that project, it was a rehabilitation of a joint seal and spall repair of runway 1331. Total cost a little over $774,000. The next project is the Boise City Municipal Airport, and that project rehabilitated the runway pavement and installed LED lights on the runway for a cost of a little over $2.2 million. The next project was at Clarence Page Airport here in Oklahoma City. They reconstructed a portion of the apron area for a cost of a little over $721,000. At Elk City Regional Airport, they rehabilitated the runway lights and PAPIs and AWAS for a cost of a little over $915,000. At Guyman, they rehabilitated the runway and taxiway pavement for a cost of a little over $4.6 million. At Jones Memorial Airport in Bristow, that was constructing a new terminal building with a cost of a little over $1.2 million. At Kingfisher, that project reconstructed taxi lane and apron at a cost of a little over $394,000. In McCurtain County, installed an omnidirectional approach lighting system at the runway 20 end at a cost of $507,000, almost $508,000. At Pauls Valley, we constructed new taxi lanes at a cost of $571,100. At Stroud Municipal Airport, apron and taxiway pavement rehabilitation for little over $419,000. At Thomas Stafford Airport in Weatherford, we constructed a new terminal building. Many of you were at the ribbon cutting and the grand opening the other day at a cost of $1.6 million. And Watauga Regional Airport, we reconstructed runway 1735 and connecting taxiways and installed LED runway lights for $2.3 million. And at Wiley Post, rehabilitate the runway 1331 pavement and lighting at a cost of a little over $804,000. These 14 projects in total totaled up to $18.8 million for all 14 projects. And I will stand for any questions.
Are there any comments or questions from commissioners? Moving on to item 13, Airport Pavement Management System Update. Kelly, Ben, please continue.
Okay. Well, this is one of my favorite projects, which is the Airport Pavement Management System. So I want to go over what we completed this year. Last year, you see that we completed 31 airport projects you can see spread out through the state. And this year, we completed these 31 projects, as you can see in this slide, and really from corner to corner. And I really like this project because it allows me to go all over the state. We've driven and been at all these airports. Some of these probably you should drive to when you go out to the Panhandle, out to Boise City. It's a long way out there, but it's nice to have our equipment and our van and be able to drive up and down the runway and do things. I will say on the trip out to the Panhandle, we did do that very efficiently, I felt like, because at Boise City and Guyman, both of those, we did a final construction inspection that we just talked about at those while we were there, and then did the pavement PCI study at the same time. And while we were out there, we also did the PCI pavement inspection for Hooker and Beaver airports as well while we were out there. So it was a pretty efficient trip, although it's a long drive out there and a long drive back. Next year, we plan to do these 31 airports, and that will complete our 3-year cycle. And when we get those 3 done, we'll start over again and do them all over again. This slide, I want to point out that this would be all the airports that we will do in the 3-year cycle. I want to point out the average PCI for last year and this year has been about 78, which is a pretty good, well, actually satisfactory. The number ranges from 71 to 85 for satisfactory. Good is from 86 to 100, and fair is from 56 to 70. I'm saying all that because we want to keep our pavements in above a 65 PCI range, and by doing that, we extend the life and are very efficient with the cost of major costs at airports are these pavements. So if we maintain these airports pavements above a 65, it extends the life and is helps the economy of what we invested in those pavements. Just real quick, go over the process again of what we do. We do the pavement inspection where we gather the data, which is we gather the distress type, the distress severity, the quantity in each type and severity. We input that data into the paver program, and then we run that program, and it gives us the pavement condition index for each branch and section at the airport, which means the runways, taxiways, and aprons. So each pavement gets a PCI, and then it rolls up into an overall PCI for the whole airport. Then we provide a letter to the airport and the FAA summarizing our findings and give them recommendations of kind of improvements and pavement repairs they need to do at the airport. Then the last step is to update the ArcGIS. And the next slide shows the ArcGIS map that we have on our website. And you can access that through the OAC website. Anybody, the public, you commissioners can go on the website and click on any of those airports and see the PCI as well as some other data in that ArcGIS map. And with that, I will stand for any questions. And yes, we're still excited about pavements.
Do we have any questions or comments? Thank you, gentlemen. Now we come to item 14, our Oklahoma Airport System Plan Update. Mr. Young, we are ready for you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I am very happy to report that after a lot of work over the past 2+ years, the Oklahoma Airport System Plan project to update that is now 100% completed. So we have all the deliverables for this project. I can think back here. I've been here with OAC a little over 3 years, and within my first 2 weeks, I know we were in scoping conversations and getting this project kicked off, waiting for grants to come along, and really planning for this project. So it's been a long time coming. Very personal to me because it's been what I've spent the majority of my time on here with the commission, in addition to all the other wonderful things we get to go and do. But the project duration from signing the contract and kicking off to now completion just shy of 2 years. And really this morning I just wanted to give a quick highlight of some of the processes and outcomes that have stemmed from this project. So as you can see here in this study process, we started out with an inventory. Where are we at now? We sent out surveys to airports, users of the system, to really get an idea of, one, what we knew to be out at our airports, but also the perspective of others that either are there every day to work the airports or those who fly through the system across the state, and to get feedback and really see it from a perspective maybe we hadn't looked at to this point. From there, we went into the forecasting process. That's doing that during a pandemic is very difficult, especially whenever you have to work very specifically with the FAA planners to ensure that they have the information that they need. And whenever you present information they don't agree with, there has to be a lot of conversation to come to an agreement as you work through that process. And you have to get that confirmation from FAA prior to moving forward with the rest of the project. So originally we had really hoped to have this wrapped up by summer of this year. That item right there is really the reason that it's taken to this point to get through this project. But that has led to some good silver linings on down the road we'll talk about a little bit. So from there, we went in and looked at airport roles. We have had 3 airport roles since we originally came up with our system plan in 1999. We have our regional business, community and district, district and community airports. And one of the biggest things that I noticed whenever I first started getting into the system plan and digging into that is that we had 49 of our 108 airports in one of 3 categories. And so that was one of the first things that came to my mind whenever we started to review this, is whether or not 3 roles is good. Do we need more? Do we need less? What does that really look like? And so that was a big part of what we went through as we started this evaluation. And as you'll see, as we go through the slides here, we've gone now from 3 roles to 4 roles within the state airport system. From there, we moved on to system evaluation. How is it going? Is the system serving folks that are using the system? Is it really serving the communities that these airports are in? Are there gaps in the system? I know we talked a little bit about that here within the past 2 years as we worked through some AWAS projects and noting that there were some gaps within the weather reporting system and making sure that pilots had that information as they flew across the state and that information was accurate. And so we took a good look at all of those types of things to see how are we now, and then moved on to really setting the facility and service objectives for those airport roles across the state. Really trying to compare apples to apples to the different types of airports. We don't want an airport that really serves single engine traffic that really needs to compare them to, say, a national business airport that's got the bigger iron, the cross-country trips and large business jets, those types of things. So they're all very important to our system, and that was really the lens that I wanted to make sure that I was looking at this throughout, because a lot of times folks can get stuck on the big airports across the state and feel like they get all the focus, but we really recognize the benefit that our smaller airports across the state give not only to the state as a whole, but to the communities, because that's a lifeline for them, and helping them showcase that in their communities is a part of what we wanted to be able to do with this, as well as, of course, our economic impact study that we have conducted in 2017 and look to update later on here in the coming years. In addition to those things, one of the things that we did that's a little unique to a lot of other states with the system planning process is we looked at the estimated costs that we expect to be planning for over the next 20 years. This is something that we do regularly with FAA every 2 years anyway, as part of what's called their NIPIAS needs update that they do. They just went through and updated their NIPIAS report. But even for the airports within the state that aren't part of that federal system, we gather that 20-year anticipated need every 2 years so that we get a good idea from our perspective what to be planning and programming for going on down the road. Not only over the next 5 years, as we do all the time every year with our airports, but that 20-year horizon. What's coming down the pike? We know we're addressing an airport or a runway right now. Well, we know we're going to have to do some rehab on down the road, so we want to go ahead and plan on that. Get that picture, that long-term picture. And then, of course, we do have some recommendations that came from our consultant through this process as well. So from there, we just really, what do we want out of an airport system? And so we came up with these kind of guiding principles here in terms of our performance measures to ensure that we have a system that is safe, efficient, accessible, supports our economy, economic development, obviously a huge part of what we do, and working with our economic development resources and folks across the state and different communities. And of course, a system that meets our users' needs. If we're not meeting our users' needs, we're probably not doing a good job of maintaining our airport system. So from that, we went on through and started looking at our roles here. And so as you can see, we went from 3 roles to now having 4 roles within the Oklahoma airport system. We now have the national business airports, regional business, general, and community airports that we are categorizing our 108 airports within our system by. And so our national business airports are going to be, our Tulsa Riverside, Wiley Post, OU, those types of folks that where you would expect to have a terminal building, an FBO, jet services. A lot of times you're going to expect a lav cart there. You're going to have some of those things that you wouldn't necessarily find, say, at a community airport where, one, you can't even potentially land a jet, they don't have Jet A, those types of things. And so what we've done is worked to create this list of roles, and as you see as we go through, from those 4 roles, we then looked at our objectives for each of those roles. But here you can see kind of the spread of those different roles across the state, as well as the distribution percentage. So instead of going from essentially half of our airports being in one of 3 categories, a much better distribution. And really, we just started looking at where was the natural cutoffs for these and what objectives were kind of becoming the natural dividing lines throughout for these. So as you can see there, good distribution across the state of the different types of airports. Obviously, your metro areas are going to have more of the national business type of facilities, but as you can see, we do have some that stretch up to the north there, and honestly, there are some probably there on the northwest that aren't far from serving that type of role anyway, and there are some that are looking to get to that point at some point in the future. Moving on from there, with our roles, we then looked at our facility and service objectives based on these roles. So as you can see, each column has the role there at the top, and as you go down, you can see their objectives for the different items there listed on the left-hand side. So just a quick kind of pick through of these. You'd expect a national business airport potentially to have a 6,000-foot runway that's 100-foot wide. That's our objective that we set for that. It's not a requirement, but if you're somebody that's trying to become a national business airport, or say you are a national business airport that is looking to, your projects on the horizon, this can give you some guidelines on what maybe to aim for, what users of these types of airports might be looking for, so that you can plan and prepare to bring in some of those bigger jets that you might be trying to attract, or make sure that your pavement can accept a G5, on a regular basis without leading to some big issues. So you can see there's everything from runway length, strength, approaches, weather reporting, that we really wanted to break this down and give folks, obviously this is for our planning purposes first and foremost, because there's a lot of planning and program that we do, but we wanted to make sure this is all very easy to read for those that operate our airports across the state, because we think this can be a huge resource for them as they plan and go through. One thing to note here, as Kelly just mentioned, our PCI goal has been 65, to be above 65 for a long time. One of the things that came out of this is we looked to modernize that and come more in line with what was kind of those dividing lines of the normal pavement management categories. So I mentioned, good, satisfactory, fair, those types of things. So in order to better realign that with the good and above pavement, instead of a PCI of 65 being our goal, a PCI of 70 now is what that's set at, just because of how the best practices have changed and modernized. So we want to make sure that we're good or better, or keeping our pavements at good or better, because again, the long-term cost of maintaining those a lot less whenever you catch them early on, rather than waiting until they're debilitated and then trying to build, put a Band-Aid on something that really needs to be reconstructed. And so the intention of this being to help folks plan, airports plan for their upcoming projects. And then in addition to that, we looked at the cost data for the anticipated projects over the next 20 years, as I mentioned. And so out of that, we anticipate over the next 20 years, a total of $2.5 billion worth of projects were noted. And so this ranges from everything, just like what we normally, the projects that Kelly just mentioned, a lot of our reconstructions, rehabs, the normal pavement maintenance, those types of things are listed in there. And so those would be basically categorized in the airport identified costs. Whenever we ask for those 20-year costs from the airports, that's obviously the lion's share of that at $1.9 billion. But we also looked at the system plan identified costs. So for our benchmarks, for our airport rolls, that $640 million there is essentially what it would take to get every single one of our airports in the airport system to fully meet all of their objectives by their roll. Now, that's obviously not a requirement, but that gives us an idea of where we stand versus where we may want to go. And it's not to say that we need to correct or bring every single one of those airports up to that level, but it gives us a metric at what, where we stand versus maybe where we want to go. And so in looking at the different breakdowns of these as we look through a couple of these slides, commercial service airports make up about 40% of that total $2.5 billion cost, 60% for general aviation airports. One thing to note that all of our national business airports, all of our commercial service airports are going to be represented in the national business airports. So in terms of the general aviation airports, the national business being very similar in terms of the cost of the regional business airports, but we all know whenever you got maintain a Part 139 standards, your costs go way up. So, but that includes everything from maintenance to vehicles to snow removal equipment, anything that those commercial service airports listed on their 20-year anticipated needs that were eligible for AIP dollars, we made sure that that was included in here so we had a good idea of costs. And last one similar to that slide gives you a comparison by project type. Anticipated new pavements, whether it's a new runway, new taxiway, new apron, whether it be expansions, extensions, any of that, about 30% of that $2.5 billion would be represented in that. Lighting approaches, those types of things, about 5% of that $2.5 billion. Existing airport pavement improvements, that's going to be anything from rehabs, reconstructions, strengthening was a big thing that we talked about here. I know that there's a couple different airports we talked about over the past year really needing to look at strengthening aircraft for the types of big iron they're trying to bring in. And vertical infrastructure, and about a quarter of that $2.5 billion for hangar access, terminal access, those types of things. And then one of the biggest things that I noticed out of this as we were going through is only 3% of that is safety and standards. And so I think that's just a testament to the leadership, not only commission, our staff, everybody, over the past 20 years who's really been working to address RPZ issues, runway safety area issues, taxiway separation issues, those types of things. And so that's just really a confirmation that our priorities have been in the right place, and I think that they will continue to be so thanks to our guiding documents here. And to kind of start to wrap us up here, looking at these costs on an annualized basis, about $85.8 million is what we find this day and age to have as an anticipated annual funding level. That does factor in the more recent infrastructure dollars that we might not have had in years past. So that was a silver lining that I mentioned in terms of having to wade through that forecasting projects for a little longer than we really would have wanted to. And so we got a really good idea of what that funding level gap is on an annual basis at about $39 million over the next 20 years. And as we know, we just always like to put that $10.6 billion worth of annual economic activity that our airports give to the state of Oklahoma to show that regardless of how much we invest in our airports, it's a great investment. And so I believe we have a couple of real quick items that shows our deliverables here. And so on our website now, you can go and look at any one of these documents, executive summary, being the one that I recommend the most. Our commissioners, obviously, we brought you some. For those in the room, we do have some over here on the table if you're interested. But that's the main document that I think a lot of people are going to lean on. We do have the technical report. I have a few physical copies of those, basically a binder with about 1,000 pages in it, if you really want to look through it. But that's those 1,000 pages have been my life for the past 2 years, so I can be more than happy to answer those questions with a phone call, so you don't have to wade through that. We have a single page front and back of a fact sheet that just gives the high level information. And then my favorite part, aside from the last slide that we'll come up to, is the individual airport reports you see on the right side there. For all 108 airports, we have an individual airport report that states what role they serve and what benchmarks they do meet versus those that maybe they don't, and a cost associated with meeting that need. So took this to molecular level, wanted to make it easy to use, easy to follow, and really just give us a path toward planning for our future projects efficiently and effectively. One more slide here for my favorite part of the project. This is our GIS portal. So much like the APMS portal that Kelly just mentioned for our pavement management system, this is a similar gathering of information for the system plan. So several tabs up there at the top, but you can click through, look through airport characteristics if you want to know what airports do we have weather reporting. You can click and see all that visually. It helps us look at the holes that are maybe throughout the state. You can do that by runway length, taxiway width, runway width, all sorts of different, whether they have lighting on the facility. So anything that was collected through the system plan is documented in our GIS database and searchable. You can even export the data at the far right, top right up there, put it into an Excel form, and literally get every piece of information that we collected. Also connects right to our pavement management system there, so that you can get, with one click, get to both of those systems. Unfortunately, too much data and information to combine those and keep it really easy to read, but no, really proud of that, really excited for what this is going to lead for us in our planning and programming efforts. And so, sorry to be a little long-winded there, but there's a lot to talk about on the topic of our system plan update. I stand for any questions.
What does the blue region on this diagram show?
On this particular one, that shows your service areas for all airports within the state system. So that's a 30-minute service area within each one of those airports, and as you can see, very few areas where we don't really fill the need within the state of Oklahoma, and even those where it's a little thin, I think we still reach 95, 98% of our population across the state with some type of airport.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
You mentioned the goal was a 70% pavement score,
Yes.
and what I thought I heard was 78% is what our average is right now.
Right.
Is that an anomaly, or should we raise our goals?
I actually think that we're great on our goals. I think we're just doing really well. I think that our planning and programming of the past decade, with the things that we've really been focusing on, I think that just shows that even without this tool, we've been working on the right priorities. Because as we look across the standard with the new APMS kind of guidelines and best practices, that's kind of what's raised that a little bit from that 65 to 70 guideline, and we kind of we learned more about that as we went through the recent pavement management system update. But as we went through that and saw where those that was divided up on those scales as we went through and did that, it just seemed, if we wanted to keep it green, why not move it up to 670? And so it's we do have. I'd be interested to see some of these that are on the back end of our list here to see how that one lines up. But I mean, I think in general we're just ahead of the curve is really what it comes down to, and we have our priorities in the right place.
I understand that pushing that score will require a lot more money too, so
Right.
you're driven by what your constraints are.
Certainly, and I mean it's just because we have we get a reading back that a lot of ours are averaging 78 or that kind of thing doesn't mean if we have the the funding that's ready to go and we know that that's going to preserve that life even more, that we couldn't go ahead and try to pursue those. It's just making sure that we don't do that without first addressing those that are maybe down in the 60s.
How do we compare with other states? Are we, with our goals, comparable?
I might be. I know of some of the other states that we do. I'm a little biased just because this has been my baby for the past 2 years. But I think that the way that we look at things and the way that we utilize the different, cost analysis and stuff that we were able to do in this, I think we are doing very well. And I think that the biggest piece of information I'd relay to you that would back that up is I got a call from Glenn Bowles with the ADO down in Fort Worth saying that our final wrap-up chapter was the best chapter he's ever read in a system plan update. He
It's a
said
big
the
deal coming from those guys.
The succinctness with which we wrapped everything up and made it very easy to follow. Because again, I'm a keep it simple, stupid guy. Why complicate things whenever you can simplify them and still get the right product? And so I think they really appreciated that. And despite some of the efforts we had to go through and jump through with the forecasting effort, working with FAA on this really went pretty smoothly. And it was great to get that feedback from them.
Of all my time in the commission, it's the best organization I've seen. This is impressive. And
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And I thank you all.
If we have no further questions, thank you, Nick. Let's move on to item 15, our Aircraft Pilot and Passenger Protection Act update. Mr. Thomas Galloway. Please begin, sir.
Good morning. So for our APA update this year, we received and took action on a total of 72 items. 15 of those were approved, 3 were terminated. We had 0 denials this year, and at this moment we have 54 pending. That pending number is a large number to have pending. However, 53 of those are one project. And then of that 72 total number that we did this year, 66 were wind turbines, 5 were communications towers, and 1 was a communication tower that was applied for last year and acted on this year. So we are up a total of 44 structures from last year. Again, that's mainly due to having 2 large wind projects that came in this year. And I will stand for any questions.
So there's a large number of these near the Gage Airport?
That's correct.
Okay. And those that were terminated, what would be the cause for that? In too close? Too tall?
No, so a termination was either the application was withdrawn or it was terminated by FAA again due to a withdrawal on that end. And that's typically either a land leasing issue with the company or some other construction issue. That's not a denial for an airspacing purpose.
Okay. That's a lot.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 16, our Wind Energy Development Act compliance update. Mr. Young, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I promise I'll be much shorter on this one. As we can see here, only 7 notifications this year. I don't know if you'll recall, but last year we had about 24. I think the reason that we are so thin this year is because we had 24 last year that they're still working through. And so some of these include those that are still working through the FAA process. But as you can see, we're only waiting on 4 of the 7 in terms of getting the DoD mission compliance letter back. It's not, considering we got these less than 2 months ago, that's pretty par for the course. I would expect that come the first of the year, and as FAA starts continuing some of those conversations they're having with the different bases and the folks up in DC, then we'll start seeing those come through the January, February timeframe. But as expected, it's been a lot easier to keep up with these than they were last year. But that's just because now they're Thomas's problem on the APA side of the house. So everything's going well in this regard, but I stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions? If there are none, thank you very much, sir. We will move on to item 17, our emergency rules for the airport construction program. Director Arties, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, as we have discussed in the past with the additional funding that's coming our way throughout 2022, we would be looking to bring before you some rules. Obviously, it's the emergency rules and then the regular rules. I'll be talking about the emergency rules today so that we can ensure a timely investment in the funds that have been allotted to us. With the PREP program, there were some new things that were added in that our existing airport construction program rules had never considered. Things like 100% funding. There have been other things that we have learned throughout the process of our existing hangar program, our existing terminal program, that we may need to change some of the rates that we do. So before you today, and I believe the emergency rules are sitting there in front of you, we have a couple of main tweaks. I won't go through every single tweak that's before you, but the main tweaks are increasing the share of our terminal building projects. As you all remember, this is a pretty important project. We just cut the ribbon at the Weatherford terminal. We'll be cutting the ribbon on Bristow's terminal next week. We've done other terminals, whether Lawton or Grove or Muskogee, and I know a lot of you have participated in those before. This is the front door of the community, and the last time we updated our rules, we increased our share to $500,000, and that was in 2011. Obviously, since 2011, we've seen some inflationary changes. And so the terminal buildings that we're building today, as you saw on Kelly's presentation, that was a $1.6 million terminal building at Weatherford. That's what we're seeing is probably that $1.6 to $2 million range. So we are looking to increase our cap to $1 million to allow for that project to be a true 50-50 split, as opposed to having to have the airport sponsor bring on the other share or use FAA dollars, so on and so forth. So that's one item that we're looking to increase. The other items that we're considering is our hangar grant program. We're going to bump up 10% on both shares. So whereas previously it was a 30% grant or a 60% loan, we are now going to a 40% grant or a 70% loan. That was based on feedback from the legislature as well as some of the airports as we've gone through some of the hangar iterations. And given that we've gotten $14 million through PREP, we want to be able to serve as many airports as we possibly can, as well as removing the cap on the hangar program. The last thing that we're looking to do is add in fuel systems as a potential project. This is one of the things that we have heard from our airports, and of course has been an eligible funding item within some of the fundings that we've received, and we just need to have our administrative rules reflect that. And so again, fuel system, we're going to take the terminal building approach and go 50-50 with an airport sponsor, up to $300,000 cost for the OAC share. We do believe that emergency is necessary on this, and as such, when we submit these rules, if you all approve them, we will submit the emergency finding as such. We know the PREP bill was an emergency bill, and some of the other being able to implement these dollars in an efficient and expedient manner necessitates the need for having emergency rules. Of course, we know emergency rules, if approved, are only temporary, and that's why we're having to back them up with permanent rules, and I don't want to steal too much of Michelle's thunder for the next agenda item. But Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions. These are the emergency rules that we have presented before you, but staff recommends approval to continue the emergency rule process and submit these to the governor and the legislature.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions?
This document in front of us, it's Title 25, Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, Chapter 15, OAC Airport Construction Program. This is not the emergency rules, is it?
Yes. So
It is.
Yes. Those are the existing administrative rules that we have in place today, and then obviously the changes before you that are considered the emergency rule changes.
Where are the changes lined out?
Changes should be in the airport construction section.
Look at page 2. There should be underlined.
I see. Yeah.
Hold the car. Don't let the director walk up. We need some tech crew assistance, please help.
Okay, as briefed then.
So if it's emergency,
Yes, sir. I know. Fix me up, fix me up.
If it's emergency, I guess, does this just say that you all can approve this?
No, any project would still come before you for approval. So the emergency is changing the rules by which we would be able to fund these projects and program them. So for example, if we have a terminal building in the ACP today, and it's a $500,000 cap is what we're limited to. If we approve these rules and they are approved, our cap then goes up to $1 million. We still come before you. The grant process is not changing. It's
Each
just
time.
the funding level. Yeah, each time we still come before you. It's not, no, I'm not asking for permission to have the say. I don't,
Okay.
I would not venture that permission from you, Mr. Commissioner. This
I
is
just
just
wanted to
allowing us.
clarify
Yes.
what we were doing.
Greatly appreciate that clarification.
That's it.
No, I'm not taking the burden on my shoulders. I'll leave that target on your back.
I'm not the smartest guy up here, so I just wanted to make sure.
I understand.
You understand I'm not the smartest guy? Is that what you're saying?
No, I understand.
Okay, I just.
That goes on the record.
We understand.
I just wanted to clarify what he was saying.
That
there.
goes on the record.
My understanding is just about your understanding.
For the record, that's right.
For the record, I wasn't commenting on the first part.
Okay, all right.
We'll leave that up to more judgmental individuals that may know you better.
Exactly.
Do we have any further questions?
So our vote will come after Michelle's clarification?
No, this will be, the vote will be on item 17 for the emergency rules.
Okay.
Michelle will be bringing before you the permanent rules. So the way the emergency rule, permanent rule process works is emergency rules have a limited time frame, obviously considering their emergency. And the theory is you do the emergency rules up front. If those get approved, those last you for that time period, and then the permanent rules will go in place. Because permanent rules take about 12 to 18 months to do. And so it takes a long time to make those happen. And so the emergency rules are the leg at which you stand on while the permanent rules are going through the process.
So the legislature has to approve this after we do. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Correct, yeah, there's still other
He
steps.
can tell me that.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to approve these emergency rules as proposed?
I think you should not, I think you should.
I move we approve this. Now we'll see.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Chairman Hunter.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you. I now recognize Michelle Bozadin for item 18, OAC Airport Construction Program Administrative Rules.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Grayson really the director already stole a lot of my thunder there. As he said, you know, we've started the emergency rule process. Since you've given the go-ahead, I will get that stuff processed right away. And hopefully speaking, we should see those changes, you know, go into effect late January for the emergency portion. What I'm bringing before you is the permanent portion. So the emergency will no longer be effective next September, provided it gets approved through all the steps. So these permanent rules are going to take the changes that you see before you and make them permanent next fall. And that's what I'm doing here today. The underline there, as you can see, there's not a lot of changes, which is why it took you a minute to find them. And Grayson went through the specifics that we are changing as far as funding levels concerned. And so that's what we're here before today. We'll make these changes go through, which will help the communities in the long run, help with the projects and the rising costs, which we're all very familiar with. So I'm happy to stand for any questions. If not, staff recommends approval to begin the process for the permanent rules.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any questions?
We'll look forward to this in a year and a half then, right?
Right?
If not, do we have a motion to approve these administrative rules as proposed?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Chairman Hunter.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Michelle. On to item 19, Progressing Rural Economic Prosperity. Prep Fund update. Director, the floor is yours, sir.
Prep funds. We'll probably have this agenda item on most commission meetings moving forward as we look to implement the funding that the legislature has provided us. At the last meeting, I gave you kind of an overview of the various projects that have been awarded. I'm pleased to say that today we've met with all the 4 mega projects that we have purview over. Tulsa Tower, Will Rogers AAR hangar, the Woodward Industrial Airport, and the Ardmore Industrial Airport. Had a discussion with them, how we're going to implement it, what's the plan for 2023. We're hearing that the money is going to come into our bank account sometime the potentially second to third week in January. I've heard January 18th, I've heard January 19th, but that is when the money will actually show up. That'll be 90 days after the PREP program was passed. And since that's what the legislature and special session rules require, that's the 90-day magic date. At the end of the day, we are very excited to implement this, we'll call it somewhat life-changing program for the Oklahoma airport system. In addition to the 4 mega projects that we are overseeing, we're also helping Clinton Sherman with their investments that they've received from PREP and ARPA. We've met with OSIDA just last week while I was in Ardmore. Nick and I had to divide and conquer. I went to Ardmore, Nick went out to Clinton Sherman. I think I got the better end of the deal because it was pretty windy out in western Oklahoma that day. But the thing that I think is most exciting about PREP is seeing the transformational long-term thought processes that these communities are having. Even with the hangar program and seeing and having conversations with airports about hangars. We just had a conversation with Sand Springs yesterday about potentially hangar, the flight schools that could go in there, the MRO businesses that could go in there, the large business jets that people are wanting to bring into the fleet that can go into these hangars. The opportunities for our communities are endless. And as I had mentioned last week, this just goes to show you the state of Oklahoma is wanting to put its money where its mouth is and having a fully industrialized economy and making sure that aviation airports play a big role in that. We all have heard about the large industrial site in northeast Oklahoma called Mid-America. And yes, it is one of the few site-ready development opportunities that's out there. And that's why it keeps getting all the economic development programs. That's why any company, large-scale company that needs, hundreds and thousands of acres of land to develop is always going to Mid-America because our other industrial parks in the state aren't site-ready. And so that's where we're hoping. That's what the legislature's intent, that's the governor's intent as we invest these ARPA and PREP dollars to get these industrial sites, whether aviation or non-aviation, up to speed. And we, as the Aeronautics Commission, want to be able to play our role to ensure that we're going to be able to use these monies to be able to bring our airport system up and be functional as economic development tools for those communities and for the state. So looking forward to 2023. Break out your gold shovels and your gold helmets for some groundbreakings. It's going to be fun. It will be a fun time. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'll stand for any questions.
If there are none, thank you, Director Arties. Next up is item 20, our airport celebrations.
Airport celebrations. We've had a couple of really good airport celebrations here in the last month. I want to give a shout out to the staff. This is one of those other duties as assigned tasks that I get to assign the organization. And Sandra Shelton, Michelle, others throughout the organization do a yeoman's work putting on these events and really is the highlight for these communities. You really kind of see at the end of the day why we do the investment that we do when you see the ribbon cut on a new runway or a new terminal building or a new hangar or any other infrastructure item at that airport. The way the community galvanizes around the airport and around these celebrations, a lot of times this might be the first time a community member has ever been out to the municipal airport. And once they're out there and they see the opportunities and they hear us talk, they have been converted. They are now in the religion of air evangelism, as we like to say. And here you see in some of these pictures of the Watonga runway celebration, it's not every day we get to build a brand new runway from the ground up. And we did that. We did it here in the exact same spot of the existing runway, unlike Bristow, where it was a brand new runway that had moved over. But the Watonga community really showed up. We saw a lot of our aviation friends there. It's somewhat humorous that we were in a hangar that leaked like a sieve, and it had snowed the previous day, and as the snow was melting, it was melting down through us, and it goes to show you the conversation was had afterwards, after we'd make remarks about our hangar program, that, well, gee, maybe we should apply for a hangar at some point in time in the future, and that way we can have our next celebration in a really nice, high-quality hangar. And so these conversations just beget other conversations and discussions about how these airports and these communities can work together to really use them as the backbone of their economic development drives. And so Watonga was really great, November 15th. And the next one, which I'm really, really proud of, probably the most proud I think we've ever been as an organization at a ribbon cutting or a celebration, was the terminal building at Weatherford Stafford Airport in Western Oklahoma. I know several of you attended that. I want to say thank you for doing that. Of course, you're welcome at any ribbon cutting, groundbreaking that we have as an agency. But this one was a long time coming. We all know the Weatherford Airport's is a crown jewel in Western Oklahoma, particularly the Stafford Air and Space Museum. If you haven't been there in the last couple of years, I highly recommend going again. They just recently expanded. Supposedly, sometime early next year, they're going to get an F-117 fighter, which is the first stealth fighter in one of their big rooms, where we actually held the celebration this year. But this also commemorated Senator Inhofe's kind of last celebration as a sitting U.S. Senator. And he's always been a stalwart supporter of ours, been at many celebrations, many ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings. And I just want to say thank you to the great senator for being there and being on stage with General Tom Stafford. Really, if you think about it, two titans, heroes, legends, whatever descriptive word you want to use to describe those two guys, but they shared their story and their appreciation for what was going on. But I think it was just good to be in the moment, see that community of Weatherford come out, probably 250 people out there in this room, and be able to be amongst a lot of leaders and see that moment that, who knows? We talked today about Wiley Post and Clyde Cessna a lot, and that happened 100 years ago. Who knows what they're going to be talking about in 100 years from now? Maybe it will be Tom Stafford and Jim Inhofe and what they've done for aviation aerospace, for not just the state of Oklahoma, but for the country as a whole. And so it was great that we were able to lead that opportunity, great that we were able to partner with our community of Weatherford. I want to say great thanks to Mark Schoonmaker, who I think was still back there in the audience. Yes, sir. For, well, one, constructing the terminal building to have the celebration, but two, for doing everything that him, the airport team, the community members were able to do to put this on. We're a small staff. Our airports are small staffs, but we seemed like we could move mountains that day with the things that we're able to do. And Weatherford really, truly rolled out the red carpet, unlike any other community that we've experienced. So thank you to the mayor. Thank you to the community of Weatherford. Thank you to Mark and the airport team for doing. I don't even remember how many airplanes we had there that day. It seemed like it was at least 24. There you go. That's a fact. That's an important one to remember. And in a hurry to leave. And so I think this day will be remembered for years, decades, and who knows, maybe a century to come, that this building with General Stafford's name on it, with the community of Weatherford's name on it, will cement the front door for the Weatherford Airport for many, many years. And I know they have a lot of plans for the existing terminal building, which is attached to the museum. I think they're going to use that as a museum expansion opportunity. So again, thank you to the community. If you're ever out there in Weatherford, thank them for all the things that they do. Mayor Brown is one of the best in the state, and what he's able to do for a community, but also for aviation aerospace. And I will say, given that room, this wasn't the room that we had our commission meeting in earlier this year. This is another room that they have for conferences and weddings and all kinds of other events. We may want to use that in the future. That's an amazing room, especially since that room is going to have the F-117 in it here, hopefully in a few short months. So we'll take you up on it. So yes, commissioners, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to the next ribbon cutting or groundbreaking celebration that we're going to have. I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions or comments? If not, Next, I welcome Nick back to the podium for item 21, National Business Aviation Association, Business Aviation Convention Exhibit 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my first time to be able to attend the NBA Expo down in Orlando this year. As we mentioned, Director Arties was a little preoccupied back at the house and welcoming a new member of the family, so I was happy to step in and really, as anybody who's been to these, it really blew my hair back. There's a lot of stuff going on at these expos, and to be honest, it was just great to be able to work with all of our several partners that we go out there with. As you can see, even just from the booth that he just had up there, there's several names of different companies that were there with us. So we had the Department of Commerce, Port of Muskogee, Oklahoma and Tulsa Chambers, Ardmore, Consolidated Turbine Solutions, ProBeta, Quality Coating Solutions, all these great folks you see in this picture here. And then all the others that were exhibiting at the expo hall, Oklahoma companies like Mint Turbines, Covington Aircraft, and several others, Capital Aviation here. Just a great group of folks. And I'll say that at the booth, the biggest thing that I got was, wow, Oklahoma's got a presence here, and we had no idea. And that was only second to what the heck's Oklahoma doing here, which allows me to get into my favorite spiel of why we are the epicenter of what aerospace should be here in the United States. So get to go into the nice selling points that a lot of folks don't know about us. So that really is my favorite part, is working the booth. But obviously our big reason for going down is conducting business meetings, getting in front of folks that are looking to expand or locate to the state of Oklahoma. It was a pleasure to have Commissioner Rainey join us. He was down there at the event with us, as well as Representative Nicole Miller, who got to sit in a lot of those meetings that we conducted over the week. I think we had somewhere between, I'd say 15 to 20 total meetings. I got to be a part of about 8 of those. The companies range from mobile fuel tank repair, flight planning and dispatch software, MRO, obviously. A lot of folks looking to Oklahoma for MRO expansion, some component manufacturers, flight training and FBO services, and a tug manufacturer and company that look to potentially manufacture and sell those here in the state of Oklahoma. Big factor for a lot of those, obviously, our centralized location here in the U.S. is a big reason why they accepted our initial call to have those conversations. But how we really got to blow them away is whenever they started asking about that one question that every company out there was asking about is workforce. Can Oklahoma support our workforce if we were to expand out there? And so it was quite a pleasure to be able to quickly answer that question in regards to all the different partnerships we have across the state, whether it be Career Tech, our universities, and of course our AOPA high school curriculum, Choose Aerospace curriculum, those types of things that obviously the wonderful folks on our staff and of course our rock star Paula Keaty, very easy to rely on all the work that they're doing. And I mean, it blew people away during those meetings to understand that we have those connections and those relationships and those priorities in the state of Oklahoma. And it really furthered all of the conversations that I was a part of. And so all in all, great connections, wonderful conversation. I'm still getting calls and emails to reconnect after that. Of course, some of those are sales pitches, but others are actually worthwhile conversations. And so, I mean, it was a pleasure for me to attend. And I really think that continued support of that, I mean, it's not being able to go and see what we're doing there. It's hard to get a grasp for just all the running around, all the conversations, all the different things. And Commissioner Rainey, if you want to elaborate on any of that, if you have any items that you'd like to talk about as a part of that. But for me, it was eye-opening, and it was just a pleasure to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, a lot of companies from all across the country, and I think there was a lot of activity coming through the Oklahoma booth, and it was a lot of you guys had a lot of meetings scheduled, so I think it's a productive trip.
Absolutely. I don't know where the time went, but I was apparently there all week. And of course, I stand for any questions.
If there are no comments or questions from the commissioners, next up is that was item 22. Next up is item 23, our review of upcoming aviation aerospace events and review of 2022 AOC events, OAC events. I'm sorry, okay. Item 22 is Oklahoma Aerospace Forum.
And that was just weird because I actually had it misnumbered on mine, so I was like, oh, wait. But for the Aerospace Forum, this is another first for me and a pleasure to be able to attend. Typically, I'm running around the civilian airports, but it's great to see what's going on in the defense side of things because obviously it's a huge part of what we do here in the state of Oklahoma. So it was good to be able to hear from the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Logistics and Product Support. Don't envy that position this day and age, but hearing her perspective throughout that keynote presentation was quite eye-opening, all the different things that she has to think through. But at the end of the day, it boiled down to the similar issues that everybody else is dealing with, and that's workforce, trained, skilled workforce, and supply chain issues, those types of things. And the main item that really stuck out to me during that primary keynote was, her really requesting that folks are furthering educational programs, getting folks interested early in the educational process to showcase what is available, especially across the state of Oklahoma. A lot of us, at least for me growing up in the state of Oklahoma, knew Tinker was here. I had family that worked at Tinker, but I didn't really know how to get into that line of work. I didn't know what that process looked like to go that direction. I was just like, well, I'll go be an engineer and then maybe eventually I'll wind up there. Obviously, I went the aviation management route eventually, but having that outline for kids as they're coming up to see what those different career paths could easily become based off of their interests, it was great to be able to know that we as a state of Oklahoma are head and shoulders above several others across the U.S. in terms of the partnerships we have. Again, universities, career techs, and all the above from grade school on up. And so every event that we go to, we hear those things and we get to say, hey, well, the state of Oklahoma's already got that going. How can we help you do the same? And how can we make sure that we're creating those connections and furthering the industry as a whole so that we can continue to bring that workforce to the state of Oklahoma and support our installations. So the other panel I got to sit in on and listen to was the cybersecurity panel. Similar issues in terms of just ensuring that we have the skilled folks in that industry to ensure that we're protecting the different things that are going on at Tinker and our different bases across the state and, of course, across the globe. And a lot of things that they were highlighting was primarily just to ensure that folks are taking a proactive approach to cybersecurity. A lot of times we don't really solidify and secure a lot of those different servers and different things until something happens. And so it was a big focus on putting yourself through stress tests and getting the right folks in to understand where your kind of deficiencies might be so that you don't have to go through an actual attack or breach in order to see where those weaknesses are. And that was primarily highlighted by the fact that so many different municipalities and school districts and stuff like that were attacked across the past 2 years as they all went digital on throughout the pandemic. So that really helped to highlight, that might be in a different realm, but that's out there. And so remember that there are folks out there that are trying to find limitations to systems and break into different back doors and get a peek at what's going on. And so a lot of the folks that were on that panel mainly just mentioned the proactivity and then, of course, making sure that we have a pipeline for skilled workforce coming up in that industry. The event was wrapped up by Senator Zeno, who highlighted the great strides that we've made to this point across the state in the industry, and of course urging those that were in the room to keep that momentum going and having that goal in mind of making aerospace the #1 industry in the state of Oklahoma over the next coming years. Stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments? Thank you, Nick. Next up is item 23, a review of upcoming aviation and aerospace events and a review of the 2022 OAC events and activities.
Sandra asked that I share some events. As the director said, there'll be more airport celebrations beginning on December 15th. Seminole Hangar dedication that morning at 10 o'clock. And then also the terminal dedication in Bristow. So if you're in that area and would like to join in those celebrations, that would be great. On January 27th, I mentioned last meeting, it's Oklahoma City Thunder Aero Night. It's actually an event and a game. In the afternoon, our AOPA students will be at the Paycom Center and we'll have a chance to talk to universities and Sooner Flight Academy and various activities actually on the court. The students will then exit the Paycom Center, go eat in Bricktown. Then they'll open the arena again at 5:30, and the game is against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And if any of you are interested in attending, if you would email Andrea or email me, we don't yet know the process on how we're arranging our tickets, but it is Aero Night for the industry. It is basically going to be not only the students and the university students, but it will also be our industry partners being recognized at the game, and more details will follow as I receive them. On January 27th. I mentioned earlier about the UAS professional development at Oklahoma State. That's February 24th and 25th. I think it's going to be a great 2 days for our teachers, and I look forward to that very much. I've already had lots of those folks sign up and register for that event. March 22nd will be Aero Oklahoma at the Capitol, as we've hosted that for several years. So we'd love for you to put that on your calendar, March 22nd. And then April 6th, I'm also really excited about. That's going to be Oklahoma Student Pilot Day in Tulsa. And we're going to have all of our AOPA students. We've been working with Alexis Higgins from Tulsa International, as well as Tanya Blansett from Tulsa Air and Space Museum, and they're going to welcome those students. We hope to take a huge, great, big group picture of our future pilots that day that are participating in this high school pathway. So that's an exciting event to look forward to as well.
Thank you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any further questions or comments regarding that?
Paula, I know that Sandra would want to remind everybody about this Friday in Tulsa, Women in Aviation. Yeah.
She didn't put that on the list.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't.
She's a little busy, but
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
obviously, it's an aviation luncheon at Tulsa Technology Center, Riverside, and begins at 11 a.m. And obviously, we'd love to see you there.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Next up is item 24, concluding remarks regarding agenda items. We'll entertain any remarks at this time. Moving from there, on to item 25, announcement of next meeting. Our next meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 25th, 2023, here on the first floor conference room at the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, 200 Northeast 21st Street in Oklahoma City. Are there any questions or comments? If not, item 26, is there any new business to be discussed? And failing that, it has been my pleasure to be your chairman for the past year. That gavel goes to Lindy Ritz, effective next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.